Hello and welcome to 209 Prep Sports Media. We will utilize this podcast and various social media sites to share information, highlight weekly matchups, promote the talent of the 209, and most of all, create a platform for our athletes. In an era dominated by social media and internet, we've also lost print media and the writers who loved writing about prep sports. Some of them have their own social media accounts where they freelance and cover sports. Some are writing for a few newspapers still covering prep sports. And we hope to have some of these writers on as weekly guests to share their insights, thoughts, and ideals about the various hot topics of the week. Hello, and welcome back to 209 Prep Sports. In the studio here with Scott Bryant again today. Just kind of revisiting where we're at, status report, updates, such and so forth. So it's, as of today, there's no new news. Everything's in a holding pattern. We still have hope that Newsom and his task force will put something together for us to be able to get in, some seasons. I know that we've started the purple tier sports, which are golf, cross country, swimming. There's been a few meets in the valley. And I know that there's a few cross-country meets in the valley, and now I think that this weekend there's quite a few swim meets that are going to get started. So it's, we're making some progress. Obviously, we're not where we need to be. I know that we've moved a couple of the counties into the red tier, which puts baseball and softball and those other sports, less contact sports, in a position to be able to get started, which is exciting for those schools, those athletes. I'm sorry. And there is some frustration, obviously, still. Nevada yesterday approved contact sports, football, and I think basketball as well, to get started. Much of the Northeast, New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, and then back here over in the West, Oregon and Washington. So we're really the last man standing as far as things go with California, which is somewhat kind of frustrating as far as things go. For the kids here and the coaches and the like, and I know we're battling some things, uphill battles with the teachers union and there's some, obvious fear with people, with, teaching in those environments. So opening the classrooms back up. And I think that along with businesses being shut down due to the tiers, make it difficult for, people to see through the light and say, hey, sports have nothing to do with our youth sports have nothing to do with those types of things, and we should keep those two things separate. But I think that's the argument that is being maintained at the governmental level. So that's the update as far as where things are at, as of now. There was one good thing that came out this last week. So the cohort, one sport cohort, that was put in place, a couple of months ago has now been removed. So the kids are actually allowed to play. So say football was allowed to come back, they would actually be allowed to play football and baseball, or, if we were to be able to help basketball and baseball, and that would be in the high school or travel. So you'd be able to do both concurrently and travel. Obviously you couldn't play travel football and high school football, but you could play travel football, or travel football, high school baseball, or vice versa. And I use football just because I think that's the point of contention, and that's where the let them play groups and the coaches associations have really they've worked the hardest to try to get that going, because that sport's been missed. So that's kind of where things stand now. Scott and I have obviously our opinions on things, and I mean, as far as where you stand on this, I mean, go ahead and
to me. The most obvious thing is, if you look, it's from the governor's office. It's been radio silent since February, and here we are. We're a week out from there, and we're the last state in the United States to allow youth sports. It was us in Nevada. Now it's just us, and I think we have to give Newsom a little leeway here, because he's probably been doing a lot of traveling to go see his kids play soccer in other states. And so, I'm going to give him a break there. But realistically, we try to stay, out of the political conversation, but unfortunately, the powers that be have made youth sports a political football, and it's unfortunate. I really don't know what to say. I'm at a loss for words because, here we are, California, who, we want to say that we're the most progressive state in the United States when it comes to a lot of things about, human rights and pushing the minimum wage or, any of these things. And regardless of your feeling on that's fine. But it's almost like we're doing a lot of things that are pushing us back towards medieval times. I mean, youth sports is just one thing, but then we look at rolling blackouts and we look at all these other things. And again, I'm trying not to get too political, but really it all ties into the same mentality. It's like, let's trust the people of the state of California to make good decisions. We live in a free country. Let's maintain our freedom. And it almost feels like our freedoms are being taken away from us. And this obviously is a big deal to us when it comes to that, in terms of, to me, being able to play organized sports is part of a free society, and it doesn't feel like we have that anymore. So
yeah, it's difficult, I mean, and you and I both get it. We're parents and, coaches and former players, and a lot of the relationships and the lifestyle the life that we have now is due to those relationships and those experiences that we had. And so it's difficult for our kids to not have those types of things. And I think for us, it's frustrating because you start to see, the numbers are declining pretty rapidly. And I'm not saying that we should go have a free for all and have concerts and, all those open venues and things like that. I'm not saying that, but I do think that if we don't figure this out, we're losing kids at a rapid pace as far as, grades are concerned, as far as attention, or even caring about, school or the like. And this has always been, when we started this podcast, it was to shine light on those kids that are getting opportunities to play at the next level. It was to shine light on those kids that are putting forth max effort and having, great experiences on the field. And so we could share those experiences and things like that. And so, we understand, we're not, ignorant here. We understand that not every kid gets a scholarship, and we understand that not every kid plays at the next level, but it's exciting to highlight kids that do, because I think it gives hope to those that are coming up, and they start to see, hey, that, I knew, John Smith, and, John got a scholarship, and, he didn't really get to play much as a freshman, and, as a sophomore, he was okay. And then he grew, or he started putting in a lot more work, and, and those are the stories that we want to share. That's what we miss, I think, more than anything, is just that, and it's not glorifying, I don't think. I think it's just, giving, some accolades to those that have put in the work. So,
yeah. And, you and I have talked about this a lot offline, and the relationships that coaches have with their athletes. And, that really does make a big difference. We've talked about on the show, we've talked about the importance of academia in terms of keeping, sports, keeping kids involved in school so they get their high school diploma. I can't tell you, myself included, and you even mentioned this about yourself, we probably wouldn't have college degrees if it wasn't for athletics. It really was what pushed us to get to the next level. And ultimately, that's what we're talking about. I mean, let's face it. If you're an athlete in any sport, your chances of becoming pro are so negligible. It's more about getting the chance to compete, getting to be part of a team, getting to be part of something bigger than yourself. And then, oh, by the way, the byproduct is getting a diploma. I mean, that's fantastic. But the other element, and maybe, this is something that we want to talk about a little bit today, is the relationship between a coach and an athlete, and how important that plays into not only maintaining that, the membership of being part of a team, but also the mental health of the athlete. Because I know you do a really good job of staying in touch with your athletes and talking to them and making sure that, not only are they physically well, but they're mentally well. And I think from a coaching society now, I think we're doing a better job of that through, training and education and, social media. We bag on it quite a bit, but social media does have some positive aspects, and it does allow us to monitor as coaches those athletes a little bit better than we could in the past. And so, maybe we can elaborate on some of these relationships and what they mean, and kind of jump off at that point.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. We talk about it a lot as far as what the relationship for the athlete to the coach is, and then but I don't think a lot of people understand what the relationship from the coach to the athlete is. It's reciprocated, both ways, and it's difficult. And you and I talked about this a lot a couple of weeks ago after Zeus had passed, and we talked about how, and I think I talked a little bit more than you did, but how I've kind of, in the last handful of years, taken a little bit of a step back as far as how I have relationships with kids, because the kids that when you get too close, sometimes you end up getting hurt. You get your feelings hurt. You get somebody gets upset with you because things didn't go right, and it's because it's personal. Yeah. And as a coach, we try to not make things personal, because you have to be so, and it's not jaded, but I think you have to be so, desensitized to things, because I'll give you an example. I had a player, probably 8 years ago, and probably one of my favorite players I've ever coached. And I coached him as a sophomore, had a phenomenal year. And then as he didn't really want to put the work in, he kind of just rested on his laurels and really didn't do what he could have done. And it didn't evolve into this career that he thought he'd have as a varsity player. And then he was upset with me about it, because, his performance on the field didn't equate to what our expectation was at our level. We were a pretty good team that year. We had a ton of good athletes, and he just was not in the mix. And so our relationship suffered there. And I think that was one of the first moments for me that was like an eye opener. When you're coaching, you're like, oh, I love all the kids, and you do. And I've never coached a kid that I don't like. I mean, I could truly, in 100% of my heart, say that. Now have things evolved after, we've worked together, I've coached them, and they were the athlete. Have our relationships changed? They definitely have. And I'm a human too, and I know as coaches, a lot of us, we try to put on the tough, thick skin, but at the end of the day, we have families, we have kids, we have ourselves, we have a lot of other players, that negativity can affect the entire team, and so so I've taken a step back as far as, I'm still very close to my kids. I think that's probably my calling card as a coach. I'm not the smartest coach. I do a decent job. I do a lot of work, to make sure I'm up with the times and positioning ourselves in a way that we can be competitive. But I'm not the greatest coach, but I'm a really good communicator, and I really love working with the kids, and it's a true passion of mine, and has been forever, and so, but those relationships are super important, and I'm seeing it now more than ever. We go and all we do is condition. We don't even, they come, they stretch, and we run, 4 laps. It's probably 3/4 of a mile. And then we do some sprints and some get offs and things like that, and push ups and sit ups and get out. It's really a 45, 50-minute session. But the reality of it is getting them together, and letting them kind of, socialize.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the other aspect of it too, is, I think we talked about this early on, where you can be part of a team, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a team member. And what I mean by that is, you've got a roster, and you've got, let's say in a football team, you've got, 40 people on that roster. Well, they're all part of the team, but being part of a team, being a team member are two different things. And it's those times where, you're able to get together, practice, you start becoming a team member. Celebrations at a football game, you start becoming a team member. Pre-game meals, you start becoming a team member. Hanging out at recess at school or at lunchtime, you become a team member. It's a different element. There's, I've been on teams where there's people, our team is 100, and, in college, our team's got 120 people on it.
Yeah.
I can't be friends with all those people. It would be awesome, but so then when you get to college, they dial it up, offense and defense. We even had 2 different locker rooms. And so, there's a lot of functions that you do outside of the sport that contribute to that. And that contributes to the mental well-being of the athlete as well. And so there has to be that element. I think as a coach, you become a sounding board, you become a confidant, you become an arbiter at times. Yeah. There's a lot of elements to being a good coach, and we've all seen bad coaches, every one of us, and those people. We talk about when we grew up and the people we were coached by and the positive influences we've had from coaches that we've really drawn on and incorporated in our style of coaching. I think the same could be said about having bad coaches, using them as a way to learn as well. Like, I'm not going to make the mistakes that coach made with me, and a lot of it is, being tactful. Some people don't have tact and they say what's on the top of their head, and that might not always be the best thing to say. So it's like, drawing back, to that and incorporating that into your style. And a coach that you and I both had, and he's very well known in the area, is Robert Ammerman.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, he gave me a lot of pearls of wisdom when I first started coaching, and they were not sport specific. They were just coaching specific. And, they're important to me to this day.
Yeah.
One of the big secrets of coaching is how to develop that demeanor for a season-long relationship with a group of athletes. And I'll never forget this, that he said the first thing you got to do is at the beginning of the season, you've got to be an asshole.
Yeah.
You have to be.
Yep.
Because it can't work the other way around. Now, as you get towards the end of the season, you start backing off and you let that change, but you got to lay down the law on day one.
Yeah.
And then you can back off. You can't be friendly with all your athletes on day one and then try to change the narrative and things aren't going right, be an ass. It doesn't work that way. And most of the time it's, that's kind of, saying being an asshole might be a little extreme, but you have to be really firm when you first start, and then you can navigate from there. But, Emmerman had a lot of good things to say, and I still, throughout most of my career, I drew on that as well as a lot of other coaches.
Yeah, Bob is probably, one of the most revered coaches in the Valley. I mean, he coached for a long, long time with a lot of success. Put a lot of kids through high school and got them into, and just by giving them opportunity and like you said, I remember, the first 3 weeks of practice, it was very structured, very rigid. And then, by you get into, the end of the season, May, and you're in t-shirt and shorts and you're taking batting practice for 90% of the practice. So, and that guy would throw all 2 hours of practice, would throw batting practice, and he did it every single day.
He had a better arm than most major leaguers, man. I don't know how he'd throw to save the pitcher's arms. He threw batting practice, and man, he could throw too. He was a very good pitcher.
Yeah, you couldn't sneak a fastball by a Linden kid that was down and in. I mean, he threw it there, and he could hit it. He could, he could, hit a gnat, flying in the air. So, but yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think that as we evolve as people, and I found myself being a lot more laid back as as the older I get. The first time I coached, I think I was in my mid to late 20s. Full of piss and vinegar. Go out there and you just think you're going to set the world on fire. And so, and then I started that same way, very rigid and strict. And by the end of the season, we had guys wrestling on the mound, and and it was just, and that's the relationships that you build. And once you gain their trust and, they gain your trust, then you can realize, you can take the foot off the gas a little bit and let them be people. And I think that's important that we do that too. I think that when you give a set of instructions, they become robots, and then when they're put into a real life situation, they don't know how to react because they've not been told how to react.
Yeah.
And so for us, we've talked about this ad nauseum. The reality of our coaching styles is we want to try to build better people for society. We're not trying to build better athletes. I mean, that's the icing on the cake for us, but realistically, we want our kids to go out and get good jobs and be good parents and and be good productive members of society. And a lot of the kids we've coached, you and I both, are now on the boosters club and the board of directors and all of those types of things, for Little League and for football and all that. So we've, and not because of anything we've done, but we did play a role, in that. And they did see some positivity and some positive experiences that they had, and they wanted to be able to replicate those for their own children.
Yeah, and I agree with that because, we've come across athletes that maybe their home life wasn't so great, and we're able to give them, when they're able to get away and be, this goes back to our original conversation about let's let them play. A lot of times those kids that have the tough home life, this is their outlet. This is their best chance to have a good day. But on the flip side of that, I can honestly say that for most of the athletes that I've ever coached that have gone on to do great things, I was just kind of a facilitator because they came from great parenting and I was, as a coach, I was very fortunate over the years to have some really, really good parents involved in the programs. And so, at that point, it's kind of like, just don't screw it up, stupid.
Yeah.
It's like these parents have done a good job of raising kids. Just don't screw it up.
Well, and your job at that point is really just mirroring what the parents are doing at home, and it's, and I think I've actually enjoyed coaching those kids that have that type of a structure at home because you can almost you can be more hands off, but you can also be more it's kind of reaffirming what they're doing at home is the right thing to do, and so I think it's a win-win from the parent and the coach. So but yeah, I mean, I think that we're, and if there's a silver lining that comes out of this pandemic, for everybody, it's what we don't realize how much you miss something until it's gone, and so having it been gone for so long, I think it's going to have a direct effect on coaches. I think it's going to have a direct effect on players and their appreciation for that. And I think as far and fans as well, I mean, our Friday nights out here in Linden's not the biggest place in the world, but our Friday nights out here, would see, 1,000, 2,000 people at a game on a Friday night.
It's big.
I mean, the tri-tip sandwiches are second to none. And,
yeah. Best boosters club in the country, I think.
For sure. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that the boosters clubs that go out, especially in a small public school, to do the things that they do. I mean, they've done some phenomenal things out here, to get from getting the new floor down in the basketball gym to renovating the old gym to, the football, putting new turf on the football field. So, and those are all, big jobs. Those aren't jobs that are, $3,000, $4,000. I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars that are.
And the nice thing about our boosters club, and Mark Miller has a much better background than I do on this. I think they started out as the quarterback club, as a football boosters club. And then over the years they've evolved. But what's nice about our we just call them Boosters Club, but it's the Linden Athletic Boosters Club. But the nice thing about it is that they're very benevolent to the school as a whole.
Yep.
Like it's not just we're going to take care of this particular sports program or this or that. I've seen them make very generous donations to the band.
Yep.
For new uniforms, to other organizations within the school. And so our Boosters Club is really holistic when it comes to taking care of the high school. They're the main sponsor in the Athletic Hall of Fame,
yep,
which goes above and beyond the high school. I mean, there's so many good things that they do. And I know it's easy to get lost in talking about them.
Yeah.
And we're kind of getting a little bit off topic, but I wanted to go back to one last thing to say about coaching. I can say that I've been on all sides of it. I've been an athlete, I've been a coach, I've been a referee, and I've been the parent of athletes. And I will say this when it comes to the parenting side, when you are upset with a coach or you don't agree with something, or, something is, you go to a game and your kid's not getting enough playing time, or there's this or there's that, really respect we talk about the 24-hour rule. If you're upset with something, take 24 hours, reevaluate your feelings, think about what really got you angry, and go from there, because these coaches are just like us. They're human beings. They're not getting at the high school level. They're not really getting paid at all. They're basically volunteers, and they're doing it for the love of the sport. So, At the end of the day, we've seen these little league parents and the videos on YouTube where, these parents want to run out on the field and beat the crap out of a coach because they treated little Johnny the wrong way. All I can say is you take a deep breath, understand that most of the coaches that you'll deal with outside of college coaches are going to be volunteers, and they're just, they're coaching out of the goodness of their heart. So try to be respectful, and have the conversations with your athlete first and see what's really going on, and then go from there.
Yeah, and I've been there. I've umpired baseball games, and so I've been at every level as well. And I would say that I would say the exact same thing as far as what you're talking about, because I think that what we get caught up in is the emotion of it when we're a parent. It's my kid, and nobody's going to do that to my kid, type of a thing. When in reality, I think most coaches are pretty altruistic in the way they go about their business, and they're not trying to take anything from anybody. So. But yeah, I think it's, where we're at with things today. And like I said, hopefully, if there is a silver lining, we can get, some of the things that we've missed out on for the last 11 months will now be more appreciated as we start getting back into some normalcy. And hopefully, the cooler heads will prevail. There was some, good news this last week with the state of California agreeing to vaccinate teachers. So that should help expedite that getting the classrooms back open, because I think that there's going to be some issues, in some school districts as far as if you're not in school, it'd be pretty hard to justify them being allowed to play sports. I mean, so I think for this year it's going to be waived. I think they're going to allow that to happen, but I think if we get into the fall and there's still kids or schools that aren't open, I think we're going to have some problems, and that's where a lot of things are going to change as far as. This could be the beginning to the end of some of these sanctioning bodies that have made these rules that may not be applicable, because we don't know what situationally we don't know how things are going to change in the next year. I mean, are we going to get now we're hearing of these new variants and the mutation of the virus, and how's the vaccine gonna help? And so is this a long-term thing, or is this something that we're just gonna, and we have seen a huge declination in numbers. The San Joaquin County only had 108 cases yesterday out of 750,000 people.
That's great.
So that's really, really good, but that's still not, we need to be closer to 40 to be in the right tier for things to get where they're at. So I know that the NFHS, which is the sanctioning body for the entire nation, has done away with the tiered system, understanding because of all the data that's out there. There's so much data that's been provided that shows not only do sports not magnify the transmission of the virus, but even contact sports are not magnifying the transmission of the virus. So when you have that data, it's pretty hard to argue against why we shouldn't be playing. I mean, there's more of an argument of why we should be playing. And to see the 49 other states figuring it out before the most advanced state in the union, and I understand we're a different animal. We're the largest state in the union with the biggest populations, with the most densely populated areas, probably outside of New York City. But I mean, we have to figure it out. We're losing, daily. We're losing, the attention span of kids. We're losing the desire and the passion for kids to do the things that they need to do to make sure they get to the next phase of their life, whether it be, going directly to work, or going to a trade school, or going to the military, or going to college. I mean, it's just, you have kids that are just, apathy is going to take over, and to have an apathetic generation, we've as a society have accomplished so much. I mean, shoot, look at Tesla. I mean, these electric cars, we're about to land on he's about to drop the space on Mars, the space station or whatever Musk is trying to do with that. And so there's just...
Well, with that said, do you think we'll be able to play contact sports on Mars before we can in the state of California?
Well, and that's, those are all things that it's crazy to, and you even look at Texas now, what they're going through with this ice storm that's gone through, and how many people are without power. And, we come up with these brilliant ideas, but don't consider the ramifications of, I mean, so if you are told, totally green in Texas, I mean, now what do you do for the next however long until you get the melt off, so we're going to have, a lot of concessions that are going to have to be made on every side. We got to stop saying it's this or that. And, I think that we've seen that a lot. The last 2 years or 3 years, have been so polarizing. The Democrats are libtards and the Republicans or whatever, and it's like, man, we got to get past that. I mean, we're
that one's too easy when you say the Democrats are libtards and the Republicans are, let's not go there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a family show, so we got to keep it.
I just want to sit somewhere in the middle. I just want to
and that's where we used to be, right? And that's what our society is built upon. We're not a society of yes men. I mean, or yes people. I mean, we've not ever been that way. I mean, and that's why I think there's so much frustration for us in California in regard to sports, because it has always been a society of, I have my viewpoint, you have your viewpoint, but let's land in the middle. Let's both work this out to a way that both of us, and it's not about saving face, but it's really about doing the right thing. And I think that's where the issue lies now. We're not doing the right thing. How hard is it's not difficult to look and see the difficulties that people are having. I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but there's 800,000 students in the LA Unified School District. 60% are failing. So you're talking about 500,000 kids.
Unbelievable. That might be the scariest statistic that you've said ever on this show.
It's phenomenal.
Bizarre.
For us not to take it seems like we don't care about it, because it's just like, it is what it is type of thing. And you have, and again, we're not going to get into too much of the political side of it, but you have teachers, the teachers union doesn't want them to go back, but who's suffering here? And that's where, when we take on responsibility as adults, we put ourselves in a position where we have to make decisions that sometimes aren't popular, but definitely we're supposed to do what's right by the people around us. There shouldn't be selfish decisions. And that's where I feel like there's a lot of selfishness. And I'm not exactly sure why we're having these issues with Newsom and the powers that be in the state of California, why this has been such a topic that's not wanting to be discussed. I don't understand it. Until recently, there wasn't much discussed at all. But the funny part is you have other states, that played in the fall, and we still can't get our act together enough to figure something out for this spring.
I will refrain from commenting on that.
Yeah,
I think I've commented enough on it.
It's tax season, and nobody needs an audit around this time.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I just love everybody. Let's just leave it at that.
No, but we're loving doing this show. Sorry if we went off a little bit today, off the rails a little bit, but it's it's hard to find content that's interesting, but we also need to feel like we need to do a weekly show so people know it's here, because when things do open up, because they will, and when they do, we want our listeners and our viewership and those types of things to be at a level that these kids really get this great experience, because we've talked about this. My favorite thing ever to do on my as a kid was to wake up Saturday, I think it was Saturday morning or Sunday morning during baseball season, and open the newspaper, and it was the stats for the whole area. So you saw who was doing well, and they didn't who was doing not well.
Well, I used to, Saturday mornings were wonderful for several reasons growing up. First, for me starting up, it was Little League game day.
Yeah.
Got to go down. I mean, just the smells, the fresh cut grass, the playing the game, the hot dog and soda after the game, or if you were lucky enough to have a doubleheader, I mean, that was just like, oh, this is the greatest day of my life, and then as we grew older and we played, in high school, and you played, the game on Friday night, again, like you said, could not wait to open the paper the next day. On many occasions, not all occasions. There were some days that you went out and you lit the newspaper on fire. But I can definitely say this, the sights, the smells, the memories, I mean, just everything about having the opportunity to play sports. It breaks my heart that we're not giving that to the youth today, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it for today. Is it's heartbreaking that we're not able to give this to our kids right now.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, I do want to apologize because we hit on a bunch of different topics, and it doesn't feel like there was a total. I mean, it was kind of like a hodgepodge today, but I think filling space, but also having relevant, some relevant information being passed along is important. Again, you can always reach us on Twitter at 209prep. You can reach us at Facebook at 209prep sports, or email us at prepsports209@yahoo.com. Again, that's prepsports209@yahoo.com. We look forward to hearing from anybody. I wanted to give a couple of quick shout outs. I know Jake Grons out of the Ripon area has received a few offers, so congratulations to you, Jake. I don't think you've made a decision.
Fantastic.
And then
love to hear the decision on that.
Yeah, and then Jamarian Briggs, the cornerback from Lincoln, just committed to Fresno State last week. So he had a couple offers, and Jamarian, phenomenal athlete, kid's like 6'1", has like a 46-inch vertical leap, and
Fresno
like a
State,
4.40.
Fresno State won on that lottery right there.
Yeah, kid's a stud. So we'd really like you guys to share, these with us. We've got a few of them on Twitter, and some people have emailed in. When Jake Grons, when you decide to sign or commit to the school you're committing to, make sure you let us know, and we'll give you a shout out. So again, share that information with us. That's what we're all about. So anything else on the way out the door?
Nope.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a great day.